In this tutorial, we're going to focus on blocks. Blocks are by far the most important aspect to understand and for me to teach, because this is basically the core of the website. So I'm going to select About. It's an empty page. And in previous videos, if you watch the About overview video, you'll understand all of these different menu systems. So we're going to focus on this big blue button here, which is to add a block. Now, I build my websites for my clients to give them as much flexibility as possible without too much flexibility that it gets overwhelming with choices, and not too much where they can break websites. So we create the system called blocks, where they're essentially sections of a website that you can position and adjust to any page however you like. The order doesn't matter. You can swap them in, you can swap them out, you can change content depending on the page, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. So first of all, let's focus on this heading and text block. I click on it, it gets added. It's added by this blue banner. So this is the block. At the moment, this block is in pre-edit mode, meaning you are in the facility to edit it, add things to it, and edit it. If I click on this button, it switches to preview mode, and at the moment it's empty, so there's nothing to see. So I'll come back to that. I'm going to add this as a pre-heading, a very important heading, and I'm just going to grab this content here just to get some content. So what I've done is I've added some text, I've added a heading, and I've added a pre-heading. So I'm going to click Update. We're going to go to the front end. It's currently empty. And now you'll see pre-heading, important heading, and the text. Okay. So at any point, you can change this however you like. You can make it bold, you can add it in the middle, you can change the heading to an H1, or you could, and let's just delete the pre-heading and see what that looks like. So now the text is bold, we've centered it, the heading's much more important and bigger. You can make the heading an H5. So essentially, you need to wrap your head around the importance of hierarchy in terms of titles and headings throughout your website. This is very important for SEO and how Google reads a web page. Essentially, you only want one H1 per page. Do not have multiple. H2s are obviously your next level. H3 after that, and then H5 and H6 get rarely used. So try to resist the urge of going for something because it's the right size, and click on something because it's the right level of heading. Okay. Next, you can choose the width of how wide this text is. So if I click small, it's now contained within a much smaller container, and it's easier to read. So if you've got a lot of heavy text, you may want to add it into a smaller container. So that's that. You can add a call to action button. So I'm going to link to the articles, update, and refresh. So that will take me to the articles page. And you can do whatever you want with this article button. So if I click edit, I'm going to still link it to the articles page, but I'm going to change what the button actually reads and say, see all my articles, and then update. And that will change how that looks, but it still takes me to the articles page. So you've got a lot of flexibility with the call to action button. Just delete it if you don't need it. Lastly is the choose a background. Now I've given you different options. One is an image, a custom color, secondary color, and a main color. The secondary and main color will be exclusively to do with your color palette specific to you. And you can find, let's just update this, you can find these colors in the website information tab. So here is, whoops. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. So here is your main website color. You just click on it, add it here. Generally, I will have done this, and if I've done it, please don't change these unless we've agreed that you're changing your color palette of your entire website at some other point. But for the moment, you're probably not going to ever need to change these. I will most likely have done this for you when we launch the website, but this is where you can access your primary and your secondary colors. Okay, so let's go back to Pages, About. So if you notice, the main color for this website is a dark gray or slate gray. So I'm going to change from the default white to the main color, and I'm going to refresh. Notice the text changes color to match and contrast with the background, and now we've got a primary color and secondary color and so on. Custom color, there's a bit more to do here, so let's go for a nice pink color. And then notice that there is a light dark theme button now, and it's currently set to dark. So we've got a pink background and a dark text. So this dark and light theme relates to the content in front of the background. So if you've got a very light background, you want to use a dark foreground. So if I go for a dark background for whatever reason, let's do like a dark green there. I don't want dark text, I want light text. So if I click light, update, and then refresh. So we've got the light text. And the light text, bear in mind, will be the color related to your specific color palette or theme. Okay. So that's custom color. One rule to please bear in mind, you cannot have two blocks, one after the other, of the same custom color, because I'll show you what happens. Let's add a text. I'm just going to give a heading to this block. We're going to grab this exact color. And let's update that. So I've now added a second block with this heading. But notice the gap between here and here is quite large. If I change this to a blue, and we'll get that light again, this gap now disappears because we've got padding from here and then padding to there. So essentially, don't have two custom color blocks that are the same color following immediately after each other. And then lastly, we've got image. So I'm gonna go to my media library. I'm gonna select this London picture, and I can either choose to give it a dark or light text. So if I go for dark text, what it will do is it will put a white light filter on the image. So you see here, it's got a white image. If I choose light, it will do the opposite and give it a dark filter like that. Because it's very important for web accessibility to have high contrast between your colors. Okay, so I'm going to delete this second block. Now remember, we talked about this hierarchy in between here. So you can see now we've got two blocks. I'm going to delete the second one, and I'm going to click here, remove block. Update, and then we'll get back to this normal piece here. So that's great. That's the essential. We've talked about this background color. We've talked about this call to action button. We've talked about this choose width. We talked about the pre-heading, heading, and subheading, and this level. Now these are default settings for a lot of the blocks. So I'm not going to repeat those on the other blocks that we get to, but essentially those are major features that are repeatable on a lot of blocks. So I'm going to get rid of this menu bar and fix it up here, as we talked about in the dashboard video. So I'm going to put that as a top toolbar, click it there. So that's now there. I'm going to add a new block. Let's go for an accordion block. The block will always appear where you are last active. So if I've got like 5 blocks here and I'm in the middle on the third block and I'm working on the third block and then I add a block, that new block will appear after the third block and before the fourth block. So we've got the accordion block here. Again, pre-heading, heading, subheading. I'm not going to play with any of those, but notice these 4 features here. We've got the background and we've got the width, but those are all the same features as already discussed. So essentially the meat and bones of the accordion block are these 4 points here. For the moment, I'm just going to leave them as they are. I'm going to update, and we're going to see the accordion block in action. I'm going to give the accordion button the secondary color just to give it some contrast. And here's the functionality. Note, if I just click on those two, 3 and 2, update, those are the ones it now displays. So essentially, you can have an accordion block on every single page of your website and specifically choose which particular item you want to display on that page. You can also drag and drop which order you want them to appear, 2 and 3. Currently, I've set this up so it's incorrect at the moment, but by the time this launches, it will be correct. So the theme will match this, and you can drag it in order. So that's the accordion block. If you don't want them, just remove. If you don't add anything to this right block, it will default pick all items. So let's show you where the accordion is. So at the moment, we've called the accordion the frequently asked questions, or the FAQ, because that's typically what an accordion is used for. And this is essentially it. So it's very similar to the post. It's very similar to the pages. Add a new one or edit a new one. So we've edited this 4th one. This is the title, which is this. Let's refresh that. So this is the 4th accordion, so you can see the title and then small amount of content. This is the content here. You do have an option to add a button or an image. Leave both blank if you don't need either. So let's see what that looks like. There's the image and there's the button. So you can see that on these other posts. Okay. So that's the accordion. You update them here, you add them here. And the reason that what I've done is I've pulled it out of the block system and I've put it as a higher level functionality, because you may have the accordion appear on 4 different pages. You don't want to go into every single page and edit every single frequently asked question each time on 4 different pages. That's going to get tedious. Maybe you've got a typo, or maybe you want to change the question. It's far better to go into your frequently asked questions and edit it one time. And depending on how your accordion is selected, which items, it will update across the entire website. So if I want to change this title, let's just demonstrate that very quickly, because it's the same for testimonials. Let's go to contact. So contact has also got an accordion block. So here, notice the 4th accordion is not present, but I'm going to add it. So let's get rid of 2 and 3. So we've only got the 4th accordion selected. So let's go to the contact page. There's the 4th accordion. So we've got the about page displaying the 4th accordion, and we've also got the contact page. But I don't particularly like this horse. So I'm going to go into the 4th thing, and I'm going to delete the image. I don't need it. Update, and maybe this is a typo. I'm going to change that to a smaller amount of text. And so now, refresh, small amount of text, no horse. And if we go back to the about page, the same thing will happen there. So it gives you much greater flexibility without repetitiveness. So let's go back to the about page and add another block. The full editor is essentially the same as the heading and text block, but this is more designed for large text pieces because you've got the bold text. You can change the title. Let's grab this. I'm just going to copy this repeatedly, add this as a heading, return that, add that as a bullet list, and then maybe we're going to do this and put that as a quote like that. So we click the quote. Maybe we'll have this. I mean, this is going to look really garish, but I'm just very quickly showing you that the editor block gives you a little bit more functionality to play with. So let's update that. and you can see here centered text. This is the quote. Again, it will be styled differently for you, bullet points, heading, etc. And you can use the small like so. Let's add a new block. Testimonials block. Again, I'm going to whip through this one very quickly. It's just like the accordion block. You've got the testimonials here. You can choose which ones you want to display. If you want to display all of them, just leave this blank. Update, and that will add that to your website. Let's add another block. Latest posts. Latest posts relates to your posts, your blog, your articles. So sometimes when you're on a page, you want to display what is your latest post. You've just released a new post. This is the block for that. So it gives you the date, the author, the categories that it's in, the read time, comments, title, and the read more button, etc. I've added a grey box for the times when you don't add an image, but generally you want to try and add an image. So let's explore this block a little bit more. Obviously, if I click on the link, it will take me to the post. So here I can choose which categories to display and how many posts to display. At the moment, you can see that there are 4. Maybe I only want to display the latest 2 posts. And there we have it. So notice this is a beach, sunny beach. Let's change that to a unicorn. Actually, that was already a unicorn. Let's change it to pizza. So now it's a road because it's only displaying posts related to a category. If I want, and that's essentially it. So if we go for 6, I'll display the latest 6 posts on the pizza category only. So that's latest posts. We'll get to posts more in another in another video. Let's look at the hierarchy. So heading, accordion, full text. It's very useful. So if I want to move my testimonials to the top, for example, click on it and then use these 2 arrows here. I'm going to move it up. So if you hover your mouse, it gives you a tooltip, move down or move up. So I'm going to move it all the way to the top, reload the page, and now my testimonials is at the top of the page. I mentioned earlier that we've got this preview mode, but we didn't really have any text to show you. So now, when it's in preview mode, it gives you a fairly accurate view of what it will look like on the front end. So there's the testimonial. Notice now that the editing of this moves to the right, but it's all very squashed and it's not particularly very nice. So feel free to chop and change back and forth between preview and edit mode. So this is the heading block, accordion block. It just gives you that sense of how it looks, but at the same time gives you functionality to improve stuff. Last block is this columns block. This is just a generic block to give you some sort of functionality at different times for different needs. Again, you've got your heading, pre-heading, subheading, etc., etc. And the meat and bones here is the different columns. So you can get a maximum of 5 columns at a fifth each, or 3 columns at varying different settings, and then 2 columns at different settings. So if I click this 2 columns, and for the sake of argument, I'm just going to add images for the moment. If you want to compact things down, I've added this button here to hide the text. Just helps keep things. So the key note here, we've selected 2 columns. There are 2 columns selected here. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, it's here. Let's move this block to the bottom. Update. And there it is. So we could give that a heading to give it a bit more. This is the columns block. Do an H3. And then we'll add some content. I like sun. So there we go. So we've given it a heading and we've given it some content. Note that if we uncrop the image, it will now display the images at its original dimensions. It just so happens that these two images are the same. So let's swap out this image for the horse, because I know the horse is a portrait. Update and then refresh. So it will display the images as is their native sizes. If I click it back on, it will fix the images to the fixed dimension. If I click on 3 columns, please note you need to make sure that you add columns to this. So we need to add a 3rd column. So there's the 3rd column. And it'll look like that. And note that we had selected the quarter, half, quarter. So 25%, 25% and 50%. So that is that column. You can select 5 columns. You need to make sure that you add 5 columns here. So we need to add 2 more, and that's done. So I'm not going to go any further into that. So that's the columns block. Tabs block is the last one for this particular website and for my default standard. And again, same features. Here is the tabs, the nuts and bolts. Add a tab, add a tab. So tab 2, tab 1. Some content for tab 1. More content for tab 2. Update and refresh. So here are the tabs. Tabs and accordions are a great way of hiding lots of text. So if you've got a particularly large piece of text, it may be a bit boring or not overly relevant to a particular section, but it's necessary for the website, or just in general, the text is quite large in nature. Hiding it in these kinds of interactive features is a great way of condensing text and still keeping the website attractive, modern and appealing. Websites that are just full of heavy text are not very appealing to people these days. And so the tab and the accordion is a great way of demonstrating that. So that's the blocks in general. The functionality is relatively the same and repeats, like the background and the call to action button. You may find for your particular website the styles have changed dramatically. The functionality may have tweaked slightly, but I hope that throughout I've given clear use of how things should be what button does what and why, and we've given you an overview. And to get a kind of clear, when a lot of blocks happening with lots of information, it's very easy to get lost. So do use this button regularly to kind of get an overview of where things are, or swap between the preview mode, etc. So if we go down to the columns block, where's that? Here. You'll see that behaves a bit kinder. It's a bit kinder on the eyes. So that's the blocks. That's the most important thing. This is what you're going to be interacting with regularly, and it should give you so much more freedom. You can move the blocks however you like. You can change the backgrounds. It gives you a lot of flexibility without too much choice to bog you down with. Enjoy.